So I'm very honored to present you today Greg, who is leading the enterprise architecture suite at Kapish, our partner here in APAC. They were the ones who made it possible that now we have over 60 customers. And Ivan, who is going to share his story about how they introduced LeanIX and together with Kapish solved their use cases. So warm welcome to both of them to their fire chat.
Thank you, Anna. So we're going to talk today about sort of exploring practical success and a use case with Blackmores. For this session as well, I just wanted to thank LeanIX and the execs for putting on such a great show. It's a fantastic venue we've got here at the Langham, and really appreciate the opportunity for us to talk here today. So the session, we're just going to go through a fairly sort of informal chat. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about Kapish and what we do. And then having a discussion with Ivan, and we should have quite a bit of time available for questions and answers from the audience as well. So Anna, if you're okay to take the microphone when we get to that point, that'd be good. We can do some questions from the floor. So with Kapish, we're basically a leading business and IT transformation tools organisation. We basically use these tools to provide integrated solutions for our customers to collect information from strategic sources and use those to ensure that they're able to make better decisions faster. So as Anna mentioned, Kapish has been partnering with LeanIX since 2018, and we've been working with around 50 or so customers in the region. We also have been partnering with SAP Signavio since 2020, and we also have delivering of services to support the Signavio platform as well. Aptio is here today. They're one of our other partners, along with Applus, ServiceNow, and Atlassian. We refer to this as our best-of-breed continuous transformation platform or ecosystem. So with this ecosystem, we can see customers getting great success, not just in the EA space, but connecting it out to a range of other data sources. Kapish acts as a trusted advisor, providing enterprise architecture as a service activities to support the implementation of these tools, uplift business and EA capabilities, as well as performing EA maturity assessments and roadmap planning, custom sprints, and even delivering TOGAF 10 training and mentoring. So with over 50 customers, as I mentioned, in the APAC region, these customers range from the banking sector, retail, education, technology and government. So we're here to support you on your transformation journey, and we'll tailor our EA services to deliver the outcomes you need. I'd like to introduce Ivan and then welcome him to the stage. I just have a little note here for the intro. So Ivan is head of IT architecture at Blackmores Group, where he's been instrumental in establishing an architecture practice and embedding it within the business. This has included bringing governance to the decision-making process to facilitate a more structured and informed approach to Blackmores' technology choices. To support the adoption of architecture practices within Blackmores, Ivan has successfully led the implementation of seamless integration of LeanIX EAM across multiple systems and processes. Ivan's an ardent architect and passionate about using technology to drive business growth and efficiencies. Welcome, Ivan. If you would join me on the stage. Well, take a seat. So maybe we could start by Ivan, just telling us a bit about yourself and your role at Blackmores.
Yeah, so I'm Ivan, head of architecture for the Blackmores Group. I lead a team of architects to really focus on two areas. One is working with the organisation and helping them execute their strategies and ensuring that the technology alignment that they have is appropriate and rightly sized. Secondly, we focus on working with the technology teams to ensure that we have the appropriate governance and controls and standards in place to make sure that they can design and implement solutions a lot more seamlessly.
Really important role to get across all those dimensions and ensure that successful alignment between strategy and IT, I suspect too.
Yeah.
So we've got a bit of a theme going on here. I want to talk about partnering with Kapish and Linux in the first instance. So just wondering if you could describe your expectations when going out to market looking for EA tooling, what Linux was able to bring to the table, or you're hoping for from a tool like Linux, and from the jump starts that we implemented in those early stages.
Yes, there's two sides to it that I see. So one was evaluating and understanding the tool, and the second part of it was we didn't want to just treat it as an implementation project of a platform. We've learned through experience that you can't just implement it and let it run on its own. It really is something that you have to nurture and water continuously. And what we liked was we wanted quick time to value.
Yep.
We wanted to get real quick decisions made around how do we implement it in a particular way, and then help us along that journey. And that was one of the value props that we found with Kapish particularly.
Yeah, so you're looking at that support for services, treating it a bit like Emma was speaking about next door, as far as an implementation project, I suppose, to stand up the capability, and then looking for the sustainment beyond that. It's something that was actually going to be.
Yeah, and look, that quite often there's 10 different ways you can implement something. We didn't really want to spend the time learning how to do it ourselves, so the best way was to just rely on someone to help us through that initial uplifting of the platform.
Yeah, great.
And ongoing as well.
The team to bring those best practices in. And thinking specifically around the Linux side of that, so the choice of Linux, obviously, we've seen some of the benefits of that this morning, but what are the key sort of areas that you thought would be sort of beneficial in your organisation?
The choice of Linux, well...
The choice of Linux, yeah.
We actually...
Maybe where you came from as well.
Yeah, so we evaluated Linux along quite a number of competitors as well, just to try and understand what tool was the right tool to incorporate in our EA practices. And it was quite rigorous assessment. We came down to just realise that for our size organisation, what we needed was something that was easy to comprehend and understand, not just by architects, but also by the IT teams and the business as well. So we really wanted to make sure that it was lean and it was comprehensible.
Accessible by the wider...
And accessible, but
yeah.
And it was mentioned earlier on today, the meta model is something that you can just read and understand what it means pretty quickly. And that was one of the real selling points for us.
Great, so not just being able to be understood by the wider audience, but actually having something that's predefined that meant that you could actually, as I think Christian said, just put your data in and get going.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's brilliant. And from a Kapish Jumpstart onboarding perspective, so you touched on that a little bit, what were the outcomes you were seeking in that sort of first sort of 4 to 6 weeks, I suppose?
Yeah, so we had a lot of information, like many people, in Excel and Visio and PowerPoint documents, and we really wanted to help throw that into a platform very quickly. So the Jumpstart really focused around just showing us how to use the tool, but teaching us how to do it as well. So the architects got to actually use it firsthand to see how it would map into the solution, and it was a really good exercise where we had the sandbox environment, so we could sort of visualize what it might be like before we did a big data dump.
Yeah, so the integration into the team that was using it was fairly well accepted at that stage.
Yeah, and again, it was quick time to value. If we had done it ourselves, you would have got there, but it just would have taken longer, and there were decision points that we didn't need to think about. They were already obvious, through that engagement. Yeah,
we see with some customers as well, the enterprise architects in general. There's so much competition for the time that it's very easy to get drawn off, whereas if you've got an external coming in to focus on that particular deliverable as well, potentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Keeps pressure on.
And we've had a number of these professional services offerings. with Kapish, and each one helped focus on a particular outcome.
Yep.
And that drove getting it onboarded, and we could start to incorporate it into our processes, and then we can move on to the next one.
Yeah, fantastic. And just wanted to touch on the opportunities and potentially the challenges you had that were being addressed with the tooling. So what was the main sort of outcomes that or opportunities you wanted to harness, challenges you wanted to overcome with the tooling?
Initially, it was just visibility.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have hundreds of applications in the organisation, and just having it easily accessible by not just architects, but also the leadership team and EPMO and our IT teams to understand what tools do we actually use, what applications do we actually have in our portfolio. It's primitive. It's a simple concept, but I think everyone sort of struggles with Excel or complex solutions to deliver that. So that was one of the initial quick wins, that we just something simple.
Yep.
And then from there we wanted to expand on that and understand what is our technology risk around the infrastructure and components that we have that support those applications.
So gaining visibility of the gaps in their first instance, and then starting to actually colour in a bit more.
It's never ending.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned that you've used a few of the other accelerator programs and those sorts of jumpstart initiatives. Could you talk, I think there's things around surveys, data quality, and some EA maturity uplift. Can you talk to those?
Yeah, so I don't know about everyone else in the audience, but architects are quite time poor, just with the sheer amount of volume that we have to work with. Everything from reporting with a business, solution designs with various IT teams working on large transformational projects. So it was actually really valuable to be able to identify where can we improve on some of our processes and some of our whether it's automations like using surveys, through to something as simple as just help centrally defining some standards and principles that we had in several different places, consolidating them and making that a central repository for us.
Yeah, great. And some of those accelerators was actually delivering those principles and then adjusting them for your organisation.
Yeah, working with some of the existing, we have existing documentation and existing standards, principles that we've developed over time, and putting a bit more of a framework around it, and then something that we can work to start to put a measurement around it, around what is our enterprise maturity and capability that we have, and how can we improve, and where should we focus to improve it over the next 18 to 24 months.
Yeah, and how do you see that sort of governance uplift being affecting across the delivery timeline of programs and projects, I guess?
Look, we know where there are definitely improvements that we can make. We've made leaps and bounds by introducing Lean IX into our organisation. The value that we get from that now is operational efficiencies, but it's also picking up where we might have lacked visibility in certain areas. And it's driven new conversations, which is really, really powerful.
Do you see value in the other accelerators there, such as like the CAN sort of, or the additional reports, dashboards, portals that can be implemented into the workspace?
Yeah, look, I love the reporting in Lean IX. I mean, one of my favourite ones is this. I keep talking about the interface circle map report. I know that you helped produce an augmented version of that. That was
the Sankey diagram one,
there's a Sankey diagram one to just help visualize, what does our integrations look like between our applications, and really highlights where should we focus more of our investment and where do we have risks as well.
Yeah, that's good. I just want to talk a little bit about sort of the the implementation and the adoption as well. So Do you see it's been effective in overcoming those challenges that you spoke about as far as sort of visibility? Are you getting out to the wider organisation, or is it at stages?
Definitely in stages.
Yeah.
Definitely in stages. One of the first things that was important is us as architects had to be comfortable with the information that was in there, because you don't want to lose confidence when you go and share information and it's not accurate. So we wanted to ensure that what was in there was as accurate as it could be. It's always changing, but as accurate as it could be. And then we've progressively rolled that out through the IT teams and part of the solution implementations for projects. That was quite successful, and we can see the usage from IT team members, even just from to help them get an understanding of what's going on at a high level. We did I'll never forget, it was a simple 15-minute session with our EPMO, just to showcase them quite a few months ago, around probably 6 months ago, around what we're going to be releasing for them. And that 15-minute conversation turned out to be 45 minutes, hijacked their whole meeting, and they just loved it because it gave them access to information that they didn't even realise we had, and they were able to make informed decisions around strategic enterprise strategy decisions, and really see how powerful that information is for them.
And that probably leads on to the bit about sort of the automated collection of data and getting that into an EA tool. ServiceNow, for example, other systems. What's your current state for implementing there?
I don't know other organisations. ServiceNow is a wonderful product. It can be challenging to keep the information up to date, and I've experienced this where you go and log a support ticket and you want to find the application you're trying to deal with and it's not in a list. And so that in itself was a problem that I wanted to help resolve for our ITSM management team. What we decided to do was actually integrate with LeanIX, and LeanIX became that custodian of what is a business application. And what that meant was the downstream impacts were we had assurances that the information in ServiceNow for business applications was accurate. So when someone wanted to consume that information, we knew it was there. But that's just the start of the journey. There's still more integrations to come within ServiceNow just to help fill that complete circle.
Yeah, can you talk about the Jira and Confluence? I think you're using those already as well, which is a very different part of that puzzle. So it's going the other way.
Integrations is I love that topic because it's really where you start to get value out of not just the tool itself, but how do you help other processes and other tools work. So with our architecture review board, we run that through Jira project, and all the decisions get recorded in Jira for us, and all of the notes and associated information. But one of the real important things is, that ticket just gets lost in the weeds once its decision has been made. So with the integration with LeanIX, we're able to just go to that application or that IT system and see the references.
So the list of tickets that have been...
We can see all of the, whether they're architecture review board decisions, or it could be risks. So, we might have been associating a specific risk of a technology that we can then see within LeanIX and relate back to it. So it's very easy for us to get all of that information at our fingertips.
Fantastic.
And then Confluence is similar in that way, where enterprise architecture historically was quite static. You'd create artifacts, they would get filed away, you wouldn't use them, and you'd go to look for them, they're outdated, it was too hard to update it, and it's just what happened, I think, over the last 15, 20 years in architecture space. What we decided to do was push a lot of our documentation into Confluence so that our solution designs were a lot more maintainable and a lot more accessible. So the integration really helped there.
Yeah, so although you've got the unlimited user licensing, Confluence is a great way of actually exposing some of that content to different audiences and collating it together, I suspect.
Yeah, or just to find it, really. Just finding the information, which is, at the end of the day, like, if I think about, like, the root of what LeanIX does is it's a repository of information and links to information, and it creates relationships. So, you know, the meta model is all about relationships between an application and and an interface or a data object, or all of the other fact sheets. But it's also the relationships with Confluence pages, ServiceNow objects, and other areas.
So do you have other integrations in mind as well, heading forward? Short term, long term.
Look, I like exploring and understanding from an automations perspective what can we do. We're starting to work with Kapish around just building some of these automations that if this happens, go and do that.
Yeah.
And so far, we've got a couple that work from within LeanIX to trigger some actions, and in the future we'll change that to be, external triggers to influence LeanIX.
Yeah, potentially calculated fields and things like that.
Whether it's calculated fields, I was actually just, had a great idea around why don't we, as part of the onboarding and offboarding of people, just go and check LeanIX to see whether that subscriber is part of a fact sheet, and if they are, then go and notify them that they need to pick someone else. Just to keep our information current.
Connected to those overall processes.
Exactly.
That's brilliant. And what a lot of people are very interested will be around the business impacts and the success metrics. So do you have much in the way of the specific metrics and KPIs that demonstrate these, any positive outcomes? Look, I don't have any metrics off the top of my head. I think you had one we were talking about the other day around sort of the throughput of your ARB, for example.
Okay. So for our ARB, by interfacing it with LeanIX and using Jira, what we've seen is a much higher uptake in our ARB submissions, but also the quality of it is a lot better, and we're able to then see a lot of that referenced information easily and make those decisions faster. If I think about over the last 6 months, we've doubled the amount of fact sheets that we've got, or not fact sheet, objects within LeanIX, and our user base has doubled as well. Right. So
you're seeing a lot of growth, a lot of additional uptake. Yeah. And moving on to sort of future plans, will you be? I suppose what's your long-term vision? How do you see the enterprise architecture capability sort of realising more gains across the business outcomes? I mean, you've got an interesting circumstance at the moment through the acquisition. Has LeanIX been beneficial in the Kieran?
Oh, it's been fantastic. As part of the integration with Kieran Holdings, they the first phase is obviously they need to understand what does our footprint look like. Being able to just produce a report and a dashboard and share that with them, where historically something like that would have taken us, weeks to compile and validate, make sure it's accurate. So that, just a very quick win. I mean, following on from that, there'll be definitely, tracking what are our strategic objectives and how they align.
Yeah, no, perfect. And that was my question was around sort of those success milestones. How can you measure that over time? Even your EA maturity, is that something that you are looking towards assessing? Yeah.
We again looking at how do we adopt certain capabilities without going overly complex. We don't want to have something that's extremely difficult for us to maintain, but we want to just get the insights quickly. Yeah. And that's one of the areas that we'll definitely be focusing on in implementing a capability maturity assessment for our team, and how do we progress and focus in key areas.
Yeah, brilliant. Time's going more quickly than we would have thought as well. But key takeaways as we get to this point. So, what are the sorts of things that that you would advise other enterprise architects to be considering as they implement solutions or look to solutions to?
Key takeaways. Start small, and I felt that we did start fairly small. We had a very specific objective we wanted to achieve initially, which was just around a centralized repository for application portfolio management, and we iterated from that, and we, it's like a almost like an a la carte option, where, or a tree decision, where do you want to focus on next?
Yeah.
And we evaluated the next stage at every point to realize where should we be investing the time.
So sort of having a backlog of capabilities or
Absolutely.
increments, but then prioritising based on your needs.
Exactly. So when I evaluated originally with the team, we had let's just get our applications in there. We did tip our toe in the water with understanding our IT components and those associations, and we've done a pretty good first wave of that.
Yep.
But we realised, as good as that is, it's really costly to maintain that information, and we want to outsource that to ServiceNow.
Yep.
So we're working on that as a future project to have that full circle where ServiceNow can tell us what are all the IT components. For us personally, I think if I think about what to focus on, it would be get the APM in there initially. Focus on surveys. Yep. Surveys are critical because you want to democratize this information, but you also want to allow the owners of these systems and applications to feed that data back to you. Reap the rewards of other people investing in keeping their information up to date. And then, to me, again, what drives the circle map to me is the interfaces between applications, and that is a wealth of knowledge that really helps understand, even within our IT teams, the complexities that there are between systems. And some of them are historical, and we've identified that these areas that we definitely want to work to improve. In other areas, it's just because they are complex systems. We're trying to deliver some sophisticated capabilities, and there's complexity.
Yep.
And that's okay. We're happy with the complexity. It just means that
visibility.
We have the visibility of that complexity.
Yeah. And you're connecting across to InfoSec at the moment and those sorts of areas as well. So is it bringing those other stakeholders along for the ride as well?
Yeah. So InfoSec is the driver. So it's really risk.
Yep.
And in the previous session, there was the discussion around the SBOM and how do you bring that information. This is slightly a different twist to that, which I quite like, and it's around how do we understand what are some of those controls that we apply to our applications and systems from a risk perspective, and be able to report on it and easily get access to that information.
Yeah.
But not only that, how do we engage those system owners and application owners to populate the information that we want them to do? So historically, this was a capability done none other by Excel. Yep. And it was a means to an end. It worked really well from a technology standpoint. Given it was it produced the information we needed, but it wasn't maintainable. It was painful, and we couldn't do the necessary reporting quickly. Yep. And what this has done is just.
Noting Anna's got me winding up here. Do we have time for one question at all, Anna? If there's anything from the floor, is anyone?
I've just got a question about the governance and workflows that you've put in place. I think you mentioned there are workflows embedded in Linux. I assume it's about picking up new changes or applications that get introduced to the organization. And I just want to know a bit more about how that works and how do you engage the business owners to kind of keep the information up to date? I know you mentioned survey, but I wonder if there are any other things that you've done. in that space?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a combination. So it initially starts with being able to report on and target specific areas of the business to get the information as accurate as possible. Secondly, you can't, in my opinion, you can't just shoot out a survey and expect someone to complete it for you on time. So you got to bring them onto the journey. So that meant engaging with them, showing them the value behind having that information. Because once you engage with them and generate that value, they'll be happy to provide that detail. And then from there, you can supplementally ask them more and more detailed questions over time, and it's a win-win situation.
All right, I'm noticing that's probably our cue, but thank you, Anna. Thank you to the audience, and thanks just for the questions there. But thank you, Evan, and that information, that insight, we keep building back into our go-to-market offerings as well, our offerings. So really appreciate your approach and feedback into the Kapish
Thank you very much, Craig.
offering. Thank you.